Peace. Greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abel, aka Mr. Just the Facts. What's going on, family? My brother Ali Bey is in the building.
Peace.
Tonight, we're going to have a conversation about, is Kamala Harris Black, right? And this topic is being touched on by many people right now, and deservedly so. This topic needs to be explored. One of the things that we want to do in adding on to tonight's topic, adding on to this Kamala Harris discussion, is we want to get a little bit into blackness, right? Who is black? What is black? What defines a person being black? And I know for me, this has been a touchy subject, being a Moorish American, and a part of my breaking away from that particular organization, it was due to many reasons, but one of the reasons is its dogmatic push on this black issue. You can't force people into saying that they're not black. This is something that I had to learn as I grew. It was nothing that the founder, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, did, but I understood what he did insofar as disavowing blackness. Blackness became one of the badges of slavery. Like, we just have to be honest. Negro, black, colored, and another term that we don't often hear about is Ethiopian. That's another term that we don't hear about. So, I mean, we have to really touch on this tonight, because I want people to understand this thing from a different perspective. Hit the like button, share this. I believe that this is going to be a powerful discussion. And I think that is something that people really need to hear as we march forward. So I want to get into a quote from the man that I follow, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, because there's a theoretical, if you will, it's not theoretical to me, study called critical race theory. I think the man's name was William Bell. I can't remember, but I read up on him a little while ago. And, there's a whole backstory behind what critical race theory entails, the protest. I believe it was at Harvard, where they were trying to get this into the curriculum, and they didn't want it in the curriculum, and they did everything in their power. It's something you have to look up. I'm trying to bring it up off of memory. But Prophet Noble Drew Ali, in my opinion, is the first critical race theorist, because he was teaching on this all the way back in the 20s. And he said this, now a little Circle 7 pamphlet. He said, according to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today, without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from the descendant nature of his forefathers, unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. Again, I've never tried to convert people. I don't proselytize. I just don't do that. And anybody that knows me in all of my debates, et cetera, over the years, know that that's not something that I do. This is from my text, and I'm going to read it verbatim. And that's not the purpose. The purpose is to show that God created man. And men usually, as the Holy Quran says, I created you into nations and tribes so that you may know one another. And I'm going to get into some of that tonight, right? I'm going to get into nations and tribal names, and then black and white. How do we get there? So I want to pull up this image real quick. I want to pull up this image real quick. And I want people to look at this as we move further. All right, this is the image, right? If we were black, because there's a lot of emotional, and over the years I've been through so much of this stuff. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I can't really see y'all right now. Shout out to my mods, to the BTP mods. Peace, family. This is how a black person would look. It's just as simple as that. You can science it up, make a myth out of it, mythologize it, if that's a word, mythologize, science it, however you want to do with it. The fact of the matter is nobody looks like this, period. No one looks like this. I want to share a couple of more images real quick, because I think that having these visual aids are great in our understanding, because I think visual aids are great tools in learning. So here's another image I want to share. Now, this is how a black and white man would look. All right, these are images. One of them I found, the black image. The other one is an image I created out of the black image. I just reversed the colors and did a switcheroo on the stances and cropped the afro down to some what I believe to be a European American or white hairstyle. And it looks pretty convincing to me. But the purpose was to show that nobody has white skin. Like nobody has black skin. And I think that framing the discussion about Kamala Harris's blackness has to be put in a certain type of context in what's being called critical race theory today, because that's vital. I've been trying to add to this conversation. I've had comments deleted off of videos where people was talking about the problematic issue with blackness. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to add on to the conversation. I've had conversations deleted. I'm like, oh, wow, that's interesting, right? I've been maligned for speaking out against this because people felt that we, in saying that we are not black, would disalign with black causes and black movements and black struggles. And a part of that is a fault of some of these Moors over the years who were so blindly dogmatic trying to push this thing that they didn't realize that the founder himself never did this, and that they alienated more people than they brought in. And they didn't know how to have the discussion. And we have to just be real. You know, when you look at books like White by Law, The Invention of the White Race, there's several books. I was trying to find my White by Law. I just simply could not find it. That frustrated me, and I do not get frustrated easily, but I could not find my book. I have absolutely no idea where it's at, but there's something that I wanted to read. But nevertheless, when there are so many books dedicated to this construct called whiteness, that it made me wonder, where are the black books? Where are the books speaking to the obverse? Obverse of whiteness is blackness. There aren't any. There aren't any. We just have to be real. People have been scared to touch this particular topic out of fear of offending people. But I'm taught in the Moorish lessons that enemies made by truth is way better than friends made by flattery. I'm just going to tell the truth. You can like me, dislike me. I don't care. At the end of the day, I stand on the truth. Point blank, period. It's just as simple as that. So I want to pull up another image, and I'm going to get into some things. I'm going to bring my brother Ali in. I'm going to see if some of my other brothers are on as well. I don't know if they're going to come on tonight, but we want to have this conversation because it's critical. So I want to pull up this other image. Pull up this other image. Hold on. This is out of Webster's Dictionary, and I saved this a couple of years ago, and I don't have the direct date on that on that dictionary. So just bear with me. I've never liked giving information without resources. But this is from Webster's. And if you look, it says black man, A, a Negro, B, the devil. So, this is interesting, right? So those of us that do actual research, we do cross-referencing. So let me stop sharing that. And I want to bring up another image here. And then I want to get into some of the background, because I think that it's important for us to frame this conversation around the socio-political constructs of blackness and whiteness, something that people simply are not, in order for this conversation to make sense to people on why Kamala can call herself a black woman and be viewed as a black woman in the United States of America. So let me pull up this one image right here. So again, this is from a dictionary of English phrases, phraseological allusions, catchwords, etc. by Albert Montefiore Hyamson in 1922, page 49. And there we see black man, the devil. And next to it, I have an image of how someone would look if they were actually black. Empirical evidence. Empirical evidence says, look at your skin. I can look at my brown skin and can tell that it is not black. I can see that this is not black. My eyes, they're not deceiving me. My eyes are only deceiving my mind into believing that my skin is black. Period. So I don't want to run on before I bring my brother in, but all of this folded into some of my points. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this one thing up, and then I'm gonna let my brother. Matter of fact, I'm gonna read from some of my old notes, and then I'm gonna let my brother Ali come in. So when we see this thing about blackness being the devil, this dates back to how the Christians saw us. And this comes from how we were seen through the Judaic text. In Christianity, black was associated with death and the devil, as in most ancient systems. During the wars between Christianity and Islam, the Christians would describe Moors as black as ink. And this was out of fear. This was to say that they were devils that Christianity had to defeat. Not surprisingly, blackness served as a point of castigation towards the Moors, whom they routinely compared to the devil, vice, and sin. For example, Didymus the Blind, in his commentary on Zechariah, wrote that Ethiopians are black because of their allegiance with the devil, who is himself black because of his perversity and ignorance of their God. Commenting on Job 28:19, the topaz of Ethiopia shall not be equal to wisdom, Gregory the Great in his Moralia in Job explained that Ethiopia signifies the present world, whose blackness is a sign of a sinful people. Jerome wrote, people of the Ethiopians means those who are black, being covered with the stain of sin. In the past, we were Ethiopians. That's interesting. Being made so by our sin and vices. So basically what Jerome, and these are old ancient Christian authors, this is coming from a book, Saracens, Demons, and Jews, Making Monsters in Medieval Art by Deborah Higgs Strickland, published in the year 2003, pages 84 through 86. So basically what this is saying is that it wasn't until we accepted Christianity that we became white-skinned as opposed to the black-skinned Ethiopians. It says how? Because sin has made us black. Paulinus of Nola asserted, the dragon devours the people of Ethiopia, who are not burned by the sun, but are black with vice and sin, giving them the color of night. These are the Ethiopians, the serpent devourers, being condemned to make them his food. We have to get into this, and we have to frame tonight's discussion around this socio-political construct so that we can understand why we can keep getting played by a Barack Obama or a Kamala Harris. And we look past the social implications of how it's done and how we are made to worship these figures. The good thing about Barack Obama's presidency is that we didn't allow a Kamala, and that's how you pronounce her name, not Kamala. Kamala kind of ghetto sizes her name and makes it acceptable. No, her name is pronounced Kamala. And we see that we're not going to be fooled by an Obama 2.0 again, where we get symbolism over substance, praise of an individual over actual policies for our people. So my brother, I want to bring my brother Ali in, and we'll just swing back and forth with our presentations tonight.
Wow, excellent opening and demonstration, bro.
Honors.
That this blackness, a lot of people don't realize blackness is rooted in anti-Hamitism, right? It definitely is rooted in anti-Hamitism. And what I would implore people to do is look at the Hamitic hypothesis, something that's known as the Hamitic hypothesis, also the revised Hamitic hypothesis, as they began, the Germans who were interested in Egyptology begins to change that hypothesis and what that all meant. So I want to read something about the beginnings of modern race ideology from a book called From Babylon to Timbuktu by a man named Rudolph Windsor. Now, I'm not using him as an authority in anything, right? But I just want to read something that's interesting about what he said about the origins of race ideology. And this is on page 21, but let me share it so people can see what I'm reading and know that I'm not making up something. Let me know if you can see it, bro.
All right, there we go. I got it.
All right, he says here, this is again from Babylon and Timbuktu. He says here, in the 17th century and later, Europe began to emerge out of the slough of ignorance, and certain Germans and others conceived of themselves as belonging to a superior race. Johann Blumenbach, a German, was the first to divide humanity on the basis of skin color. Up to this time, no such attempts have been made. His classification set up a color line to the detriment of later generations. Mr. Blumenbach classified 5 chief races of mankind: the Caucasian, the Mongolian, the Ethiopian, the American Indians, and Malayan. Moreover, he considered the Caucasian to be the original race. Blumenbach, the anthropologist, named the whites after the Caucasus Mountains. These mountains are situated between the Black and Caspian Seas because he thought the purest white people originated there. Blumenbach was a racist, and so was J.A. Gobineau. A third man by the name of H.S. Chamberlain wanted to advance the supremacy of the white Nordic race and its culture. These men attributed psychological value and importance to race. This was racism, and it led to a horrible, vicious racial philosophy and to the persecution of the Jews in Nazi Germany, so forth. But that's the main point that I wanted to get to, was that the beginning of the division of humanity by these kinds of classifications, which started as Caucasian, Mongolian, Ethiopian, American for Indians, and Malayan, begins to take on this colorized classification later. Bro, you had the information on who broke it down by colors.
Yeah, I mean, no, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, you had that information. I guess at some point we could bring that up as well. But what I wanted to do to go a little bit further was read from the American Anthropological Association's statement on race. And this is important, right? Because they give some really good background on the breakdown of race starting from colonial America and how it begins to spread across the world.
If you can enlarge that in your browser.
Yeah, let me try to do that.
Yeah, perfect.
It's weird how it comes up. Is that better?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
All right, they say in the United States, both scholars and the general public have been conditioned to viewing human races as natural and separate divisions within the human species based on visible physical differences, phenotype. With the vast expansion of scientific knowledge in this century, however, it has become clear that human populations are not unambiguous, clearly demarcated, biologically distinct groups. Evidence from the analysis of genetics, example DNA, indicates that most physical variation, about 94%, lies within so-called racial groups. Conventional geographic racial groupings differ from one another only in about 6% of their genes. This means that there is greater variation within racial groups than between them. In neighboring populations, there's much overlapping of genes and their phenotypic physical expressions. Throughout history, whenever different groups have come in contact, they have interbred. The continued sharing of genetic materials has maintained all of humankind as a single species. Physical variations in any given trait tend to occur gradually rather than abruptly over geographic areas. And because physical traits are inherited independently of one another, knowing the range of one trait does not predict the presence of others. For example, skin color varies largely from light in the temperate areas in the north to dark in the tropical areas in the south. Its intensity is not related to nose shape or hair texture. Dark skin may be associated with frizzy or kinky hair, curly or wavy or straight hair, all of which are found among different indigenous peoples in tropical regions. These facts render any attempt to establish lines of division among biological populations both arbitrary and subjective. Historical research has shown that the idea of race has always carried more meanings than mere physical differences. Indeed, physical variations in the human species have no meaning except the social ones that humans put on them. Today, scholars in many fields argue that race, as it is understood in the United States of America, was a social mechanism invented during the 18th century to refer to those populations brought together in colonial America. English and other European settlers, the conquered Indian peoples, and those peoples of Africa brought in to provide slave labor. From its inception, this modern concept of race was modeled after an ancient theorem of the great chain of being, which posited natural categories on a hierarchy established by God or nature. Thus, race was a mode of classification linked specifically to peoples in the colonial situation. It subsumed the growing ideology of inequality devised to rationalize European attitudes and treatment of the conquered and enslaved peoples. Proponents of slavery, in particular during the 19th century, used race to justify the retention of slavery. The ideology magnified the differences among Europeans, Africans, and Indians, established a rigid hierarchy of socially exclusive categories, underscored and bolstered unequal rank and status differences, and provided the rationalization that the inequality was natural or God-given. The different physical traits of African Americans and Indians became markers or symbols of their status. As they were constructing United States society, leaders among European Americans fabricated the cultural behavioral characteristics associated with each race, linking superior traits with Europeans and negative and inferior ones to Blacks and Indians. Numerous arbitrary and fictitious beliefs about the different peoples were institutionalized and deeply embedded in American thought. Early in the 19th century, the growing field of science began to reflect the public consciousness about human differences. Differences among the racial categories were projected to their greatest extreme when the argument was posed that Africans, Indians, and Europeans were separate species, with Africans the least human and closer to taxonomically to apes. Ultimately, race as an ideology about human differences was subsequently spread to other areas of the world. It became a strategy for dividing, ranking, and controlling colonized people used by colonial powers everywhere. But it was not limited to the colonial situation. In the latter part of the 19th century, it was employed by Europeans to rank one another and to justify social, economic, political inequalities among their peoples. During World War II, the Nazis under Adolf Hitler enjoined the expanded ideology of race and racial differences and took them to a logical end, the extermination of 11 million people of inferior races, example, Jews, Gypsies, Africans, homosexuals, and so forth, and other unspeakable brutalities of the Holocaust. Race thus evolved as a worldview, a body of prejudgments that distorts our ideas about human differences and group behavior. Racial beliefs constitutes myths about the diversity in the human species and about the abilities and behavior of people homogenized into racial categories. The myths fuse behavior and physical features together in the public mind, impeding our comprehension of both biological variations and cultural behavior, implying that both are genetically determined. Racial myths bear no relationship to the reality of human capabilities or behavior. Scientists today find that reliance on such folk beliefs about human differences in research has led to countless errors. There's more, but the reason I wanted to read this was to show the arbitrariness of race and how the Europeans who concocted this whole classification system did so for the purpose of oppressing other people. These people actually misnamed entire groups of people around the world based on how they wanted to put themselves at the top of the food chain, so to speak. And many of our people cling to these, what I call BS pseudosciences concocted by these European devils for the purpose of subjugating other people, darker skinned people around the world. What that means for us as Americans here is that we were bottom casted. First with slavery, and then they added these badges of slavery, black, Negro, and colored, to identify the bottom caste. At the end of the day, our people have to understand that these are misnomers. This whole idea of race is fake, right? And it doesn't do anything to help us at this stage of the game. The only thing we'll do as far as our reparations claim is identify the people who have been bottom casted and held as a contagion to wealth, as Antonio Moore so eloquently breaks it down on many occasions. So basically, that's what I wanted to say about the origins of race and the arbitrariness of race based on the American anthropological statement on race and the history of it as it was concocted by European Christians for the purpose of subjugation.
Now, I mean, an excellent breakdown, and the American Anthropological Association like segues, you know, what you were reading, and just their namesake segues into the next thing that I want to share with the family. And again, I want you all to know that in order to fully understand why we can continue to be duped by a Kamala Harris or a Barack Obama is because of what I call racial ambiguity, because race is just a false construct. And Brother Ali was just reading that from a society of anthropologists. So let's go here. Let's go here. This is the Office of Management and Budgets, the Federal Directive number 15. Race and Ethnic Standards for Federal Statistics and Administrative Reporting, as adopted on May 12, 1977. Now let me full screen this and see if I can enlarge a little bit. I don't want to blow it up out of proportion. I guess that's good enough. Okay, I want to read because this opening, well, the second sentence, the opening sentence, which leads us into the second sentence, is important, right? It says, this directive provides standard classifications for record keeping, collection, and presentation of data on race and ethnicity in federal program administrative reporting and statistical activities. Number one, why would you need such a thing? If we're Americans, then we're just Americans. Why do you need to break things down, federal activities and federal programs, etc., by race using this term, classifications? Where do these classifications come from? Again, I couldn't find my book, White by Law. I have absolutely no idea where it's at. I've searched my whole crib and I just couldn't find it. But Ian Haney Lopez gives us excellent breakdowns from what is called the prerequisite cases that determined, these were early court cases that which determined who were white and who was not, based on two elements: pseudoscience and social acceptance. After a while, it went back and forth until pseudoscience started to get debunked and social acceptance began to be accepted. This directive reads, these classifications should not be interpreted as being scientific or anthropological in nature, nor should they be viewed, I don't even need to read that, the rest. These classifications should not be interpreted as being scientific or anthropological in nature. If they're not using science and they're not using anthropology, how are they determining these 5 racial categories? Let's read these categories. American, Indian, or Alaskan Native. Right. Let me read it.
That's a race. That's a race.
Oh, right.
According to them, yeah. Go ahead.
That's right. Now, and it says the basic racial and ethnic categories for federal statistics and program administrative reporting are defined as follows: American Indian or Alaskan Native, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of North America and who maintains cultural identification through tribal affiliation or community recognition. Asian or Pacific Islander, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of the Far East, Southeast Asia, the Indian subcontinent, or the Pacific Islands. This area includes, for example, China, India, Japan, Korea, the Philippine Islands, and Samoa. C, Black, a person having origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa. D, Hispanic, a person of Mexican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Central or South American, or other Spanish culture or origin, regardless of race. E, White, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, North Africa, or the Middle East. Now, I want us to go back, and I want to analyze Black in relation to every other group here. For Black, it says a person having origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa. If race is monolithic, if it's this static, monolithic, I guess, thing, right? Because that's all we can do is if it's a construct. So I guess we could call it a thing, I guess. How is it that Black people descend from peoples having origins in any of the Black racial groups? This makes no sense. Let's go to American Indian or Alaskan Native, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of North America and who maintains cultural identification through tribal affiliation or community recognition. That's missing from the Africa piece or the Black designation. Right. It's missing. Let's go again to Asian or Pacific Islander. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of the Far East, Southeast Asia, the Indian continent, or the Pacific Islands. This area includes, for example, China, India, Japan, Korea. So they're naming nations. They're not only naming nations, they're naming tribal affiliation or community recognition. Let's go to Hispanic. A person of Mexican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Central or South American, or other Spanish culture or origin, regardless of race. Again, we're naming nations. For Black, it says a person having origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa.
So there are multiple racial groups in Africa.
Basically. So there's the South Africans, the Afrikaans, who are largely Dutch peoples of European descent, who rule over most of South Africa. Would they be qualified as Black if they came to the United States of America? They've been there long enough. They would represent a racial group in Africa. See, we have to show y'all the complexity of race and how it's being used to help pull the wool over our eyes. I'm going to close out with this. White, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, North Africa, or the Middle East. Another interesting designation, another interesting definition for this particular category in relation to black, having a person of origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. So North Africa is a part of Africa. So if I came from North Africa, do I identify as black or do I identify as white? Okay, I want you all to pull up the case of a man named Mustafa Hefni. Mustafa Hefni comes to America in the early 1990s. He moves to Detroit.
He came from Egypt.
He came from Egypt, that's right. North Africa. Egypt is considered North Africa. He tries to get a small business loan from the Small Business Association. The Small Business Association literally tells him, you just can't waltz in from Africa claiming to be black. This dude he's baffled. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm a black person. What do you mean? They told him these particular loans are for ADOS, basically. People who have descendancy in American slavery, Jim Crow, et cetera, et cetera. They didn't use, of course, they didn't use the term ADOS, but
that's what they were conveying.
The language. That's what they were letting this man go. So he like, well, what am I? They said you're white. He's like, what do you mean I'm white? Look at me. I'm not white. So look up Mustafa Hefni. You can Google him right now and it'll pull right up. When we look at this OMB directive and we understand the fact that they're even using the term classifications to break down race, it gives us an idea of how we could get a Kamala Harris. And I want my brother Ali to come in right now, but I want to say this, right? People have asked the question, people have come into this chat and say, but Brother Lord Abba, that's what people know me as. You are more. How can you claim the ADOS, American descendants of slavery? Well, number one, I took the time to understand. I'm not dogmatic like you all are. Just not. Take the time to dissect the thing and to understand it in its fullness. And when I did that, I said, this is a perfect designation for our people here in America politically, because it separates us from everybody else, because we see what's going on with Kamala right now. We see what happened with Barack Obama. Sister Yvette Carnell says that we look at Barack Obama as a black man with a how she said it, a black man with a white mother or something like that.
Yeah.
She said maybe we need to look at him as a white man with a black father. And when you looked at his policies and how they negatively affected us, and I can pull this stuff up, just keyword, how Barack Obama destroyed black wealth. Articles are just going to come flood your whole page and your research results. These people don't care about us. They just don't. They come here to the United States of America. And if the United States of America is a house, our people, America's descendants of slavery, are the doormat that they wipe their feet on before they walk in and make themselves comfortable, before they come in and surpass us in wealth by aid of the United States of America. One, keeping its foot on our neck, and two, by giving them access to the things that were set aside for our people. Go ahead, Brother Ali.
Interesting. So, in terms of Indians, right? Because the issue is whether or not Kamala Harris is, number one, black, and number two, is she African American? Because I see people, I was having a exchange with a few people on a thread on Facebook, the thread of Darrell Scott from Howard University, where he brought up Kamala Harris as being African American by way of her affiliation with her sorority. So my thing is to people, why are you trying to change her ethnicity? You see, here's the thing. African American and Black are not synonymous. African American, if you go to the origin of its modern use, because it was first used, the first known usage of it was in 1782, where a man wrote something called the sermon or something of that nature. And it was signed as the African American. So the first known usage of the term African American was somewhere around 1782. A sermon regarding Lord Cornwallis. You can look this up. But the modern usage of it, which most people attribute to Jesse Jackson, is Jesse Jackson and other civic leaders or civil rights leaders or whatever. Their idea was about using it for the descendants of slavery in the United States. And the reason is, according to Jesse Jackson, every other group that comes here has an ethnicity, whether they are Jamaican American, Indian American, whatever it is, Haitian, Jewish Americans, you name it. Their former nationalities, once they gain citizenship in the United States, now becomes their ethno name in the United States. The only people who didn't have an ethnicity were the people classified as Negroes, Blacks, and Coloreds. Negro, Black, and Colored is not an ethnic name. These are badges of slavery. So what Jesse Jackson wanted to do, according to him, was provide something that the people who were classed as Blacks or Negroes can have to help them identify with some land that they came from, the same way the Jewish people can identify with a land, the Haitian Americans, the Jamaican Americans, they all identify with some land that they came from into the United States. And so he felt the need for Black American descendants of slaves to be able to do the same thing. And so he felt, and I'm not saying this is completely the right thing, right? But I'm just trying to explain the logic behind what he did and what they did and why they came up with African American and who it was supposed to be for. See, Jamaican Americans have their own ethnicity. They're Jamaican Americans. Indian Americans have their own ethnicity. They're Indian Americans. African American ethnicity was created by Black people who descend from slavery for Black people who descend from slavery, because they're the ones who never had an ethnic name in the United States. The ones that they had were stripped from them. So that's what the purpose was, to give the descendants of slavery an ethnic name. That was their purpose. Whether it worked, whether you agree with it or not, that's not the point. But that's what the purpose was creating the African American identity, was an ethnic name, not a racial one, for a group of people who descend from slaves that didn't have one the way everyone else did. Period. So now what I am beginning to see is people are trying to make Kamala Harris an African American. You don't get to change her ethnic identity like that. That woman knows who she is. I posted an article where she was talking about, I'm the descendant of an Indian mother and a Jamaican father, and I am an American. She self-identified as an American, not African American, an American. So there's no need to try to for Black Americans to try to change her identity. The only reason they're doing it is because they want to feel good about her being in the position that she's in. They want to be able to claim her and whatever success that she has. The fact that and what they're doing is they're doing that because they don't want to deal with the fact that an actual African American, a descendant of slavery, has not made it to that position, while a person of immigrant background is able to come and get in that position. this is the second time now. If she becomes the vice president, this will be the second time you get somebody in the presidency and the vice presidency that does not come from the people who actually built this country and made it what it was, and even created the pathway for people like Obama's father, or people like Kamala Harris's parents, to be able to come here and come up. It was because of our plight. It was because of our struggles and our people that those people are able to come here and come up. Yet this society continues to hold the people who are foundational to this country in a position underneath everyone else. And because our people don't want to deal with that, they will rather pretend that Kamala Harris is an African American. She's not. Now, let's go into this whole black thing. Is Kamala Harris black? What makes her black? Well, let me say this. Black is a racial classification in the United States. We just went through that with the OMB, Federal Directive 15, to show you that. It's a racial classification. But guess what's not a racial classification? Jamaican. Jamaican's not a racial classification. So let's look at something real quick, because this is interesting. And to me, it's telling in terms of how Kamala Harris's father identified himself when he came to the United States and during the time of her birth. So I'm going to show her birth certificate. Right? Let's pull up her birth certificate. See, these are choices that people are making, right? These are choices. Like you come to this country, you know what the racial classifications are. And you have the option when you're filling out legal documents to identify a specific kind of way. So let me know if you can see this.
It's up.
Now, this is a reissued birth certificate. This woman was born in 1964. In 1964, birth certificates didn't look like this. This is how I know this is a reissue. Birth certificates were normally filled out by the doctors, the physician.
That's right.
And they were handwritten. They were handwritten. They were not typed up like this with this kind of the fringe seals on the side and all that kind of stuff, fringes. And so this is a reissue. So understand, this reissue doesn't tell you Kamala Harris's actual race. Her original birth certificate probably does tell you her race, but they put this one out because they stopped putting people's races on their birth certificate at a certain time. These reissues don't have it. The original one does. But here's the thing, right? It doesn't tell you her race, but what it does tell you is the race classifications of her mother and father. Right here on the side, box number 7 tells you the color or race of the mother, which she is the informant. You better believe this, right? The parents are what they call the informant, the person providing the information for the documents. Parent or parents, these are the informants. So she gave the information that she is a Caucasian. Understand this. Before 1977, Indians were classified by this government as Caucasians or whites. There are a number of cases in legal information that you can look at to see this. They got their racial classification as Indians changed to Asian in 1977, which you then see reflected in the Federal Directive number 15, OMB. Box number 13 gives the quote-unquote race of her father. It says his race is Jamaican. Now, understand something. All of you people who keep saying Jamaicans are black. In the United States, Jamaican is not a racial classification.
That's right.
And he, as an informant, or the mother as an informant who's giving information for this document, could have easily said, "No, he's a Negro," because I know that in the United States, Negro or black is the racial classification that you're using in the 1960s. So right. He's a Negro.
More commonly Negro.
More commonly Negro. Yeah. Instead of putting Negro, they put Jamaican. So let me do this, right? Because the brother Ishmael Bey provided something very powerful, and I want to pull it up because It's very important that the family sees this as it relates to black whiteness in Jamaica, or the people that they call coolies, right? A coolie, according to definitions, is somebody who is of Indian and European mixture in the Caribbean. But a lot of people are saying that he's of African and African and European descent. So let me just read something that the brother Ishmael Bey posted about people like that in Jamaica, coming from Marcus Garvey. Very interesting, very powerful. This is from the book, the Marcus Garvey and Universal Negro Improvement Association papers, right? One of the volumes. It's kind of cut off on the edge. So let me just read this. Garvey says this about people like Kamala Harris's father. Those fellows make a joke at me when, oh man, this is crazy. Hold on a second.
While you're doing that, Brother Josh put a message in the inbox. Brother Josh might jump on a little later, but he said, and let them know that birtherism was the controversy of trying to say Obama wasn't born in the U.S. We are not challenging her eligibility for that office based on her not being born here. We are just showing how her parents classified her on the birth certificate and touching on the fact that they're trying to see, this is how you get around reparations, right? You could say what Mitch McConnell said. Oh, well, we had Barack Obama. We freed the slaves. We fought a bloody civil war. And now, if Joe Biden resigns, which is my prediction, now you have the first black / African-American woman as a president who already said, no, I'm not going to do anything just for black people.
Right.
Wow. Making the promise. I'm gonna play that a clip that I just put up on my Instagram page as well. Go ahead, Brother Ali.
Yeah, so hold on, let me just pull these things out because each piece was like cut off. I don't know why it's cut off like that. Hold on a second.
Oh, this conversation is important, and those of you who missed the beginning of it, make sure you go back and watch the beginning of it, because what the attempt tonight was to frame this conversation like before we even get into Kamala Harris. Kamala, make sure I'm always saying that right. Kamala Harris, because the issue is blackness itself and the fact that nobody's black, just like nobody's white. Think about this for a moment. Let's just say there's a block party or some type of gathering, and people be like, yo, who was there? Who was at the party, man? Like, yo, it was Mexicans there, Puerto Ricans. Yo, I seen Japanese people, Chinese people. I seen Haitians and Jamaicans. They had their flag. It was, regular black people there from the hood, from off the corner. I seen a couple of them cats from the hood there. And there was some white folks there, surprisingly, as well. What you'll notice is that you're naming a bunch of different nations, right? People are not who derive from nationalities, Mexicans, Japanese, Koreans, Haitians, Jamaicans. But when it gets to us, yeah, it was some black folks there and there was some white folks there. We're like, huh? Like when you hear it,
there's no specificity.
That's right. It's just this black and this white thing. This is why, for me, yes, I've fallen back from the Moorish movement. I think they've dragged that man's organization into the mud. I really do. The leadership is weak in every group of it. And there's only one real body that I recognize. But I'm going to say the leadership is just weak. It is what it is. But I'm going to always call myself and classify myself a Moorish American, regardless. That will never, ever change. I will always classify myself as Moorish American because I understand it. I understand what Noble Drew Ali was doing and moving us away from these racial classifications. And now look at it. Look at us. Look at what's going on in this nation. There's a bunch of confusion Indian Americans are lauding Kamala Harris. Indians on the continent from where she come from. I'm just reading article after article today. I'm like, this is very interesting. And yet she still stands up there and says African American woman or a black woman. I'm like, huh? But go ahead, brother.
Right. So anyway, I'm gonna pull it up in a little bit later because I want to read it. But this is what he actually says. The brother Ish. He says, as you know, the caste system in Jamaica is the black whites, the black whites as they call them, and this is who Marcus Garvey was talking about in his papers. These are people that he said that Marcus Garvey said they had to fight against in Jamaica. These black white people and these coolies included, along with those descendants of slave masters in the land. He says he is a Jamaican, talking about Kamala Harris's father. He's a Jamaican black white, and Kamala knows Americans are ignorant of that system. A Jamaican black white. So at the end of the day, we're talking about someone who, when it came down to her birth record, identified not as a Negro or as a black, which was the terminology that one would use at the time. He identified as a Jamaican, right? And so at the end of the day, I understand it, right? Black is the uniform of the losing team in the United States. Nobody wants to come and join the losing team, right? So he identified as Jamaican because he wanted to distinguish himself from the so-called Negro in America. He's not of our culture. So what makes him black? What makes him black? His skin complexion?
Because that's not black.
That's not black.
Or dark brown, because nobody's really black. But if we're taking brown skin to mean black, then.
And then the reason that our people are clinging to this is because the Europeans created this thing and they told you that's what you are. And they based it on this pseudoscience, particularly for biracial people, quote unquote biracial or mixed breed people, like Kamala Harris's father, who was supposed to be a mixed person. So because of their pseudoscience called the one drop rule, people actually believe that someone is black based on this pseudoscience put in place by racist devil Europeans. And you believe that stuff, and you basing your whole existence on something that some racist demon told you that is not rooted in anything truly scientific, or particularly of the nature sciences. So Kamala Harris's father is black how? And I was saying on the thread, bro, that we can give out the link to whoever wants to come on and add on to the conversation in whatever way you want. If you have a problem with it, you can express that. I don't care. At the end of the day, nobody's black, just as my brother eloquently broke it down. We're telling you, and you can research this, that the colorized racial classification system is a creation of European demons.
That's right.
I call them Christian extremists. Christian extremists, and we're telling you why we could refer to it as Christian extremism, because it's rooted in their biblical interpretations and how they viewed us as a people. These are anti-Hamitic rooted things that has come down through history, and it's morphed into this thing that we call racism today with these colorized racial classifications. And our people have bought that stuff hook, line, and sinker. And the reason that Americans, that we're calling black Americans, the reason we bought into that so heavy is because we've been cut off from the actual names that the people who came from Africa actually had themselves, their own names, whether that was Yoruba, whether that was Hausa, whether that was Mandinka, Fula, whatever it was, Susu, Baga, Timne, whatever, right? They had all of these different names that they themselves named themselves. And when they were cut off from that, these Europeans put everybody together and called them Negroes, colored people, and black folks. And our people believe that stuff. We actually believe it. I know James Brown said, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud," but that's because James Brown was working with limited information. He was doing what he could to help uplift the spirits of a people who have been broken and downtrodden. That was just a record. He's not a scientist. James Brown was a very funky man, but he was not a scientist. I know the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught it a certain kind of way, but he wasn't a scientist. He was working with limited information too, and he was doing what he could to try to help uplift the spirits of a people who have been broken and downtrodden in this country. I understand what they were doing, but it's not based on science. So you wanted to go in, bro? I just wanted to get that in.
Oh no, man, go in, bro. I mean, I got some stuff ready to go because, and I'm glad that we're doing it like this because I want to weave in the Kamala Blackness part, and I want to weave in where and how we get here because I think it's vital to our understanding. You know, and I'm seeing the chat. Somebody on Facebook said, "What are you?" I already said what I am. I'm a Moorish American. I'm not going to tell anybody else that they aren't this or they aren't that. People are going to feel whatever it is that and believe whatever it is that they want to. If you want me to give a breakdown on that later, I will. I have no problem. I could pull up the documentation. I could pull up the records. I did that on the show we did this past Sunday about Moors being in South Carolina and North Carolina all the way in the 1600s, recorded being there, recorded. And this is in the historical records, you know, where my family comes from. So, I could get into that a little bit later. So somebody says ADOS is the new lineage. I'm not confused. The brother Sadiku Anubu. And I agree that as ADOS, right, American descendants of slavery, where that lineage is specific to an institution that had a progeny, if you will, that was Jim Crow, the black codes, segregation, redlining, economic discrimination, and wealth inequality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not confused either for anybody that feels that way. I look at, if I was filling out a census form I have as a Moorish American and ADOS was on there, I would put an American descendant of slavery because that's where my ancestry comes from in the United States of America. Point blank, period. Now, we can get into the fact that because my ancestry comes from the South. In the North, when the United States of America becomes a country, you had our people freed in many of those states, and they were voting. They voted for their representatives to sign the Articles of Confederation. These same representatives signed the Constitution of the United States of America. Like, we can get deep into that, but I want to try to stay within the framework of what we're doing here tonight.
Yeah. Let me read something else. Real interesting. This is about the history, some of the history of Indian Americans and how they went from being classified as white or Caucasian to being classified as part of the Indian racial group. During the 1970s, Indian Americans debated if they should give up trying to be considered Caucasian or white to try to seek or accept minority status. Indian American groups, through their own petitioning, successfully changed their racial classification to Asian in the 1970s to have themselves included in state and federal Asian racial categories to benefit from affirmative action. Specifically, this is crazy. This is crazy, right? No one wants to be a part of the losing team, but they want to benefit from the plight and the fight and the struggles and the achievements of the losing team. So they wanted to benefit from affirmative action. Specifically, starting in the mid-1970s, the American Indian Association, or Association of American Indians, Indians in America, made the argument that since Indian Americans were minorities and thus entitled to the benefits of affirmative action, Indian Americans should have minority group status. Without their request to be designated as minorities, Indian Americans would have continued to be designated as white Americans in the United States or by the United States government. In 1977, the Office of Management and Budget accepted the Indian Americans' petition to change the race of Indian Americans from white Caucasian to Asian Indian. Specifically, Indian Americans had their official race changed to Asian in 1977 through Statistical Directive 15 of the Office of Management and Budget, causing Indian Americans to be listed as Asian in the 1980 census and moving forward to this day. So understand, Indians themselves were classified as white and Caucasian. Then Kamala's mother is a Brahmin, so she's a white of the white. She's a white, right? Because in her society, she's an elite. The Brahmins are an elite class in their society. They're like the whites to the blacks in their society, and the way white is to black here. So she's a white, and then on top of that, she comes in and is classified as white in the United States. See, because remember, they was here before 1977, so that's why she listed Caucasian as her race on Kamala's birth certificate. Now, you have to ask yourself, what does Kamala's original birth certificate list her as in terms of her race? I would love to see that. I bet you, I would bet any amount of money that nobody from Kamala Harris's camp is going to put her original birth certificate out. They're only going to keep circulating this reissue. This is a reissue. It's not the original.
That's
right.
But
I would love to know what her racial classification was on her birth certificate. What her mother saw her as. Go ahead, bro.
And that's the key. I want to address some of the comments in the chat real quick before we move forward. Let me scroll up some. Let me see. All right, I'm gonna just start with the OG Otis. He said, I hope you talk about the fact that the media has actually changed. Let me put it on the screen. Changed this whole discourse about her to blackness, when in fact ADOS came out talking specifically about lineage and not the saying black.
Right.
And you know, I watched Yvette Carnell's breakdown. I didn't watch Antonio Moore's video yet, but I watched the prior video that he did on Kamala as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read several articles about those who challenge Kamala's blackness, not from the standpoint that if she's black or not, right? And we've done some of that here tonight, but her lineage. Is she an American descendant of slavery? Does she get the privilege to use the term African American? No matter what we all or anybody feels about that term, does she get to use or have the privilege to use the term black as it relates to us? You know, and I was saying this earlier, this is one of the things that they did with Barack Obama. And I want to pull this comment up. Ella J. Dotson says, some Indians are so dark they are blue-black. In that respect, there's a whole lot of people who can claim black over a lot of us. We've got to keep pushing the lineage narrative. This is why I said, when I first heard American descendants of slavery, I understood that this is a lineage that separates us from anybody else who may use the term. And the way it was framed when I first started to come into the knowledge of this ADOS movement, those who are reasonable and use discernment, they're going to find the reason, and they're going to find the logic in the thing. They're not just going to be summarily dismissive. I was at first, because I thought it meant African descendants of slavery. I was like, I don't want to hear that. That doesn't even make any sense to me, you know. But then it started to get explained more and more and more. I'm like, hold up, let me analyze it. And it made sense. So again, for those that are confused, because I see some people in the chat saying we ain't Moors, that's fine. I'm not having that debate with you. I'm not going to say that you are or you aren't. This is about lineage. This thing with Kamala Harris is about, does she have the lineage that we have in the United States of America? On Sister Yvette Carnell's last show, we seen her pull up a chart that showed Indian net worth in liquid and in assets, and it was in the 400,000s. Ours in assets was, I think, 33,000, but in liquid was only 200. How do these people come here in the 70s, basically, starting in the 70s, if you will, and bypass us so much? Who's looking into that? And I mentioned on the last show the books by Mercer Baradaran on Black banking, The Color of Money, The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein, When Affirmative Action Was White by Ira Katznelson, From Here to Equality by Dr. Sandy Darity and A. Kirsten Mullen. Like, these books document our lineage. And it documents why we have a liquid of $200 in a place like Los Angeles, and a Nigerian, I believe, is at 40-something thousand. Right. And in Boston, it's $8, I believe it is. And in in Florida, it's I forget what it is, so low. All of these numbers are minuscule. Mm-hmm. So we're not even living the American life, and yet someone gets to come in on our backs and say, I am you, while living a completely privileged life. And not just her, because we can single her out and say, well, maybe she's an aberration. No, she's not aberrant in this regard. Her group is way wealthier than ours. We've shown that on the show. We've watched other economists pull those numbers up, and people doing this same exact work that we're doing right now. So I don't want anyone to get this confused. Again, as I said earlier, I'm not trying to do any conversion or proselytizing here. I am showing the issue with this name Black. There's an issue here that we who identify ourselves as Moors been on for a long time. It's just that you have some dogmatic people that push this thing to some crazy limits that nobody even wanted to hear them or take them serious.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. There's an article that Brother Josh, let me just pull this up. This is very interesting. The Times of India. Let me share this because I think people need to see this. Let me just pull this up real quick. Brother Josh just shared this article. He shared it on Twitter, but
we're not ending the stream on Facebook tonight, family. We're gonna let this one rock out. So this one we're gonna keep the Facebook stream up. We're gonna figure out how to stream to other platforms as well. I really want us to get on Twitter and Instagram. I know this platform, StreamYard, has upgraded its system to stream to different destinations. So I got to just look a little bit deeper into it. I actually wanted to do phone calls tonight, but I went to figure out, and I was like, okay, this is too complicated right now. I got too much going on. Go ahead, Brother Ali.
So Brother Josh tweeted this earlier today, right? It's an article where he's pointing out that Kamala Harris has said that she's not going to do anything specifically for Black folks, right? This is the same kind of attitude that Barack Obama took when he was talking with Ta-Nehisi Coates and other people. It's not trying to do anything specifically for Black people. Rising tide lifts all ships, right? This is the attitude, right? So this is the lane that she's in. She's not going to do anything specific for Black people. But this particular article here from the Times of India. It says here, Kamala Harris promises to lift existing per-country caps for employment-based green cards. Let's go into the article a little bit and just see what it's saying. Should I make that bigger? Let me make it a little bit bigger if I can.
Let me see.
Oh, shit, that's too big. All right.
Yeah, that's great right there.
Okay. So, Indian origin United States Senator Kamala Harris is in favor of lifting the existing per-country caps for employment-based green cards. Her presidential campaign has said, asserting the 95% in line for legal permanent residency are primarily from China, India, the Philippines, and Vietnam. So in other words, she's willing to do stuff specifically for people classified as the Asian race in the United States. Something specific for them, primarily from China, India, the Philippines, and Vietnam. All of these people in the United States will be classified as Asian. Yet, this alleged black woman that people are trying to change her ethnicity to African American and says she's not going to do anything specific for black people. No, right? That's what she said. Black is a race, so is Asian, but she's willing to do something specifically for Asians who are trying to seek some kind of citizenship in the United States. Now, it's just, I thought that would be important to point out because, you know, I see people like Jamel Hill and others talking about, why don't you all just let black women have this moment? That's not a black woman moment. That's an Asian woman moment.
Facts.
And our people, man, so we've been oppressed and subjugated for so long that we're willing to cling to anything, anybody about whatever it is they're talking about. As long as the person has some degree of melanin, it's all good. Now, she went to Howard University. She joined some sorority or whatever the case is. So now all of a sudden, in their mind, she's black enough. That's good enough. And on top of the fact that a lot of this has to do with Donald Trump and the fact that our people have been put in a position where it's about anything but Trump, right? Anything but Trump. Anything but Trump, because Trump has to go. And I agree, Trump has to go, right? I'm not a Trump supporter. Believe me, I'm not a Trump supporter. It has nothing to do with supporting Trump. But at the same time, you can't accuse people of being Trump supporters for recognizing the truth of a situation. You can't do that. But this is what's going on. Black people across the board, particularly the status quo, the go along to get along black people, the Democratic line towers, they're trying to shame other black people for acknowledging the truth of things, for being able to see. And then for speaking on it. You can't even speak on it in a country where you're supposed to have freedom of speech. You can't even speak on it. You got people, and I said this to Josh earlier, you got people who have known folks all their lives that are willing to cut off the people that they've known all their lives, family members, friends, whatever, willing to cut them off, willing to delete them, willing to block them over some woman who doesn't even know you exist, somebody that you don't even know. She's not a member of your tribe. I don't care how you cut it. She's not a member of your tribe. See, one of the problems is that I realize is that our people have been taught that tribalism is a problem and that tribalism is the thing that destroyed Mother Africa and all of this kind of stuff. Like, no. Listen, we should have been practicing tribalism all along. And we don't know how to do it now, even though other people do it. You know how we know other people do it? Every time they raise their flags from their countries of origin, they're showing you tribalism.
That's right.
Every year on Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn. See, I'm from New York. Every year on Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn, you have the Caribbean Day Parade. The night before that, they have the Juve. But the Caribbean Day Parade all up and down Eastern Parkway, you see all kinds of Caribbean flags, right? And we support that. As African Americans, we support that. We out there just like everybody else. We get the roti, You know what I'm saying? We get the patties, the peas and rice, cocoa bread. We out there with everybody, right? But at the same time, when it comes down to it, those people will turn other people will turn tribal on you. And they don't mind exalting their tribes, meaning their ethnic group, however you want to look at it. They don't mind doing that. Our people have a problem with that. We have a problem with that. And when we're trying to, specifically for the purpose of the reparations claim, when we're trying to outline who we are, our specific tribe in this country, based on our specific plight and our fights and our achievements and non-achievements, people want to tell us that we're anti-immigrant and all of this kind of stuff like that. That's not the case. That's not the case. We're some of the most accepting people. We're showing this by the fact that we're trying to include Kamala Harris in the African American ethnic group when that's not what she is. Let's just be real clear. Kamala Harris is an Indian Jamaican or Jamaican Indian American. She's not an African American. The whole black thing, man, that's on you. If you want to believe that pseudo mumbo jumbo about a black race or a white race or Indian race, if you want to believe that, even after we read from the American Anthropological Association and their statement on race, even after we read the Office of Management and Budget and the disclaimer that they put out on Federal Directive 15 that these racial classifications are not based in anything anthropological or scientific in nature, you want to continue to believe that racist bull crap pseudo mumbo jumbo is real? That's on you. That's on you.
That's right. I want to pull up somebody in the Facebook chat, Chris Benjamin Rudolph. Let's pull this up. Let me see. She introduced 8 bills with direct impact and specifically to African Americans. So let me pull this down, and I pulled up that link, right? Mm-hmm. So it reads Senate Resolution 459, a resolution recognizing, quote, Black Maternal Health Week, end quote, to bring national attention to the maternal health care crisis in the Black community and the importance of reducing the rate of maternal mortality and morbidity among Black women. Now, there's so many places we can go here, right? Number one, did this bill get passed? It's a resolution recognizing a week that talks about Black maternal health. The one thing that
can you put it on the screen?
Okay, yeah, let me put it on the screen. Let me put it on the screen.
So we can really go through.
Let's go through it. Let's go through it. All right, can you see it?
Yeah. Okay,
so this is the title. I don't know where the text of this bill is at. Let me see. Bill text.
What year is that from? 2018?
2018.
And did it get any traction? Like what is that?
Okay, see it on GovTrack. So let's see what happens here. Let's blow this up. All right, so there's the bill right there. Died in a previous Congress. Let me see. Introduced April 11, 2018, 115 Congress, 27-2019. Status, died in the previous Congress. This resolution was introduced on April 11, 2018 in the previous session of Congress, but it did not receive a vote. Try again, person in the Facebook chat group. Try again.
And man.
Try again. So
is that the only one? They said there was a bunch of them.
I mean, because we can run through all 8 of them and see if this stuff had any impact on us. And being that this person has said that, let me go to my Instagram page real quick and let's pull up Kamala's words. Share audio. Let's see what Kamala said about what
out of her own mouth.
Let me know if you can hear it, bro.
The elected Attorney General of California. She put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana.
Can you hear that?
I hear it fine. Yep.
Okay.
marijuana violations.
Let me bring that back. Let me bring that back.
The elected Attorney General of California. She put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. And I am proud of that work. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And I am proud of that work. Innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them. And I am proud of that work. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Do something that's only going to benefit Black people? No. I support the United States' commitment to provide Israel with $38 billion in military assistance over the next decade. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No. I support full funding for Israel, including for the Arrow, David Sling, and the Iron Dome missile defense system. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, I am fully committing to maintaining Israel's qualitative military edge. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, when I am elected president, I'll take immediate action to immediately reinstate protection for DACA recipients. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people.
So we see
The elected.
we see that Kamala says that she's going to do everything specific for everybody else, but nothing specific for us, nothing at all, right? If she's president, she can do this. She can, and that question where she says, no, I'm not going to do nothing only for Black people was a reparations question.
Right.
That was a reparations question.
Right.
We don't need a mental health week. If we got our reparations that's owed to our people, our mental health, our maternal health, our overall health would already be better. We could afford quality health care. Our children could have went to college and become neighborhood doctors and nurses at our local hospitals. So I don't know what you're talking about, Chris Benjamin Randall, when you say it may have done better to search her bill history. I mean, these bills died in the House. If you could pull up something that got passed that had a positive effect on our people, I would love to read it and acknowledge it.
See,
and I mean, let me say real quick. I want to say, and I want you to come in up. Kamala should just be honest. I'm an Indian American. I was a tough prosecutor in Los Angeles. Maybe I overstepped a little bit in being a tough prosecutor, and in areas where crime was high, we made the most arrests because that's where the crime was. And that's understandable, right? And if you acknowledge this, then you have to start acknowledging this reparations discussion. I'm an Indian American. I consider myself a Black woman. I consider myself an African American woman. I grew up in the culture, yada, yada, yada. Then you at least gain respect. See, I don't like Donald Trump. Not a Trump supporter, don't rock with Trump, but I respect Donald Trump. I respect him because he is racist, bigot, all of that stuff, and he wears it on his sleeve. He's not trying to hide it. He lies about a host of stuff. Don't get me wrong. He'll tell you he's not a racist while saying a bunch of racist and stuff and doing a bunch of racist things and appointing a bunch of racist judges and sharing videos of racist people and promoting and retweeting congratulatory tweets to racist people who won their primaries, as was just done recently. But you got to respect that at the end of the day because that's honesty. And it gives people a chance to say, okay, well, let's have a conversation. Here is the conversation for America's descendants of slavery. Without reparations, we cannot afford to live in this country over the next 10, over the next 20, over the next 30 years. All statistics show this. We need reparations. Here is the book from Dr. Sandy Darity and A. Kirsten Mullins. We would love for you to read this book. Maybe it will help change your perception about reparations.
Right. And that book is very detailed. It's very comprehensive. It plugs a lot of holes, provides a whole lot of information. And for a lot of people who are really just getting into the reparations conversation and really maybe just at the beginning stages of trying to understand what it is, you can visit ADOS101.com, and get it from the 101 perspective, right? Go to their roadmap to reparations page. They give you a breakdown, of what it is that we're looking for, what it should entail, who would qualify, who would be the beneficiaries, how it would be done. Also, they have on there a Black Agenda page. You can look at that and see the comprehensive nature of that. So that's for beginners, and for a lot of people who are really advanced, man, go pick up From Here to Equality by Dr. Sandy Darity, because he really goes in. He and Kirsten Mullen really go into a great amount of detail in this country and why what happened warrants reparations and a real broad reparations program. And understand, when we talk about reparations, we're not talking about just a check. We're not talking about just a check. We're talking about a bunch of things that will be included, which should be inclusive of tax tax breaks, tax what's the word I'm looking for, bro? When you're not being taxed, man. Tax exemptions, tax exemptions, debt forgiveness. There's a number of things, assets, things to help you build assets. There are a number of things that should be included in a reparations program. And so we're not just talking about checks. So what does it say? Her bills are symbolism, nothing more. Yeah, because the stuff that she's passing in the Senate, first of all, the Democrats are a minority in the Senate. The Democrats are a minority in the Senate, so she doesn't have much power there. And like I said on the last show, if she becomes the vice president, she will be the president of the Senate. But if the Senate doesn't change from Republican to Democrat, she's not going to have much sway in the Senate, even as the president of the Senate. So it doesn't matter. And understand, there is such a thing as obstructionism. I've posted an article about the Senate obstructionism of Barack Obama as he was trying to appoint the last justice that he was trying to appoint to the Supreme Court, as well as certain federal judges. He left because the Senate was Republican and they engaged in such obstructionism. It left over 100 vacancies in the federal court. So Trump was able to come in and start filling up those vacancies that Barack Obama couldn't, because the Republican Senate blocked him. This is the power of the Senate and in terms of judicial appointments. So people keep talking about, oh, the president is going to be able to appoint judges and justices and to the Supreme Court, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg is about to die. But here's the problem. Even with the civil rights case that was put in front of the Supreme Court, where the Comcast company was trying to undermine our ability to take cases into court by raising the bar in terms of what it is that you would have to meet in order for it to even be considered in the court, that Supreme Court came back with a unanimous decision. There was no dissent.
That's
Not
right.
even from the 4 justices who were appointed by 2 Democratic presidents.
That's right.
Unanimous decision to undermine the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and our ability to even approach these discrimination cases using that particular law. Peace, Josh. What's good, bro? Which you wanted to come in?
Yeah, man. I just got my laptop up. I was trying to pull up a few things, but
Okay.
I just wanted to comment. Y'all having a powerful discussion. I think it's very, very important to have this discussion. A lot of people talking about this right now, and rightfully so. And I think the main issue that I have a problem with is I feel like, we already let it be known that we didn't want Kamala Harris. Like, we already let it be known through the ballot box, and we already knew that they had decided that they were going to force feed her to us and kind of force her down our throats before the primaries. And we actually did the work. We went hard and we let it be known that somebody who's going to come out on Dr. King's birthday at Howard University with a bunch of AKAs and announcing their candidacy saying you're not going to do nothing specifically for Black folks is a problem. Like that is a utterly disrespectful statement to say with that type of symbolism, as you're trying to, just cloak yourself in what we have as an identity. And our identity is not just some arbitrary thing. Like this, when we talk about, Blackness is not rooted in like science or anthropology and all that kind of stuff. It's a social construct, yes. But what we dealt with in this country under that social construct was real. Like we really dealt with lynching. We really dealt with theft of property. We really dealt with slavery and everything that came with that. So you not having that background and not being able but still wanting to use our story to propel yourself as a careerist, that is very problematic. And so we let it be known. That's why her campaign was stopped. She was, I don't know if she was dead in the water or not. I don't know what kind of deal she made, but she certainly was not leading, right, in the times that it mattered. So when it comes back around and you see, okay, Joe Biden got in there and then he just slid Kamala in that spot. So it's kind of like, it doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what you guys feel, what you guys are saying. It matters what our agenda is, and we're going to get it one way or another. That's kind of what it feels like. So you're getting a whole lot of pissed off people right now because we've been told you we ain't want no Kamala Harris. We've been told you that it's problematic, that it's bad enough we got Jim Crow Joe Biden, and then you're going to turn around and force on us Kamala Harris, somebody that's trying to do Obama 2.0, that's trying to usurp, so like, all right, let's check this out. If we had, like, Joe Biden had a chance to if we even wanted to do tokenism or symbolism or whatever, Joe Biden even had a chance to pick an ADOS vice president. He had a chance to. There's plenty of people out there. There's plenty of people out there that would make more sense than Kamala Harris to do that. You would not be getting this type of push. So all y'all that's talking about, well, you going in on a Black woman. We talked about the foolishness of that, but we wouldn't be having this conversation if it was an ADOS woman. Because then when you say, okay, an ADOS woman, it counts for something. At least that counts for something. But this coming from, look, I was getting ready to bring up this another article. Let me see, I don't have it yet. Let me just bring up. Come back to me. Give me a couple seconds. I got some things I want to bring up for y'all, but come back to me. Definitely.
I want to go back to another comment that the OG Otis talked about right here. He says they ignored the movement that got reparations to the Democratic primary, the digital footprint for how they tried to smear ADOS for over a year. Do you think that the DNC really cares what people want? Now that Bernie Sanders, like, that's a case study right there. One of these days, I'm going to just settle my mind down and I'm going to write about that, because I want to not only write about Bernie Sanders, but I want to get into the progressive movement as well, TYT with Cenk and Anna Kasparian, et cetera, and the progressive Democrats. Because they made the same mistakes that the DNC made. And I don't think that they realize it. And if they do realize it, they're not speaking about it. Now, when you look at what the DNC did to Bernie in 2016, my thinking was there's no way that they're going to get away with it this time. That's when MSNBC, or as Trump calls them, rightfully so, MSDNC, went into effect. There was broadcast after broadcast. They were bringing in people talking about Bernie Sanders, even Gregory Meeks. He's not a real Democrat. I mean, they brought them all out there, and some of that they were trying to see, okay, if we can't get the old decrepit Biden, then we could at least get Bloomberg. Bloomberg was handing out money like Oprah was handing out cars on that episode of Oprah. You get a bag, and our people were snatching them up, right? And what the DNC coupled with MSNBC did was so diabolical that it put them on the same footing as Fox News, because there was this fear about the corporate welfare that these people receive. And many of these corporate news people, if that's a good term, they're all tied into that corporate democratic structure. So how they pushed Bernie Sanders out of the picture to protect themselves show that they care nothing about us. And what that showed me was that then I don't care if Trump is the president for 4 more years, to be honest with you, because obviously you people in the Democratic Party do not care about us. Y'all don't. You bring up reparations to people, hardline Democrats, corporate Democrats, and they're going to try to sweep it under the rug or give some political expedient response like, oh, I support HR 40. It's like, well, what about reparations? Do you support the descendants of slavery in America receiving cash payouts and other benefits that are owed to them due to generations of systemic racism and wealth inequality? And it, you know, all of these things become clear, man. So I wanted to go back to that comment about a OG. Shout out to Otis, man. You know,
shout out to Otis. Yeah.
You know, we got, so, you know, it's crazy. You wanted to speak to that, Brother Ali?
Nah, man. I think you covered that well. You know,
the Chris Benjamin guy, he's funny. He's on the Facebook chat. He's going in, boy. He's a Kamala fan. Bernie got less than 13% turnout. I mean, when you look, Bernie, I'm not gonna exonerate Bernie. He shot himself in the right foot. The DNC shot him in the left foot. We got to be honest, and we're analyzing this thing correctly. And I'm not going to claim to be the best political analyst. I'm not. I'm just giving my opinion. But from what I seen, he shot himself in the right foot, and the DNC shot him in the left foot, and it crippled him. They let old Clyburn,
right,
Uncle Ruckus come up in there and do the scratch. Let me stop. If they let Clyburn come up in there and South Carolina and promise to deliver South Carolina to Biden, and after that the tables turn.
Right.
I don't think Bernie believed in the black vote. I believe that he wanted he thought, as they all do, when, as Biden said on the debate stage, when asked about reparations for America's descendants of slavery, this man straight up came out of his mouth and said, Latinos are the future of this country, and that's who we need to be investing
in. Sure did.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, can I break something down real quick? I'm gonna pull up a screen share if you know.
Go ahead, brother.
You can pull it up. All right, hold up. All right, so let me know when y'all can see the screen. All right, cool. All right, so let me go here. So, you know, I believe Tone or somebody, maybe in that, Carnell, brought up this aspect of it. Because see, the thing is, when you're talking about race, you're also talking about caste. You know, it was not just about race. It's not really about race. It's about, in America, it's about caste. In India, it's about caste too. And so even, you know, it's like people come to America and access whiteness. That's really almost like the equivalent of accessing Brahmin life, you know. And over there, that it may not be, it's not really something you could just come and access in a lifetime or something like that. That's not how that works. In America, you can come in and it's set up to where you can access the Brahminness over here, you know, and that's what we see. A lot of people, but the issue is, and let me. So I just wanted to bring up and show that this article, so that even within Indians in Silicon Valley, there's still discrimination from the top caste on the bottom caste. You know, so now if they'll discriminate top caste and bottom caste Indians, what do you think is happening with top caste Indians and bottom caste ADOS? See, just think about that. So another thing that I wanted to show, just understand that, like, when people come to America, especially if they're coming from a higher social status in another country, but especially when you come into America and you're not held back by any albatross around your neck, dealing with coming from slavery and coming from like generational trauma and disadvantage, dealing with all kind of things. Most people in your family struggling. You've coming from hard time environment. Like, you got a whole lot to overcome. When you don't have all that to overcome, when you come to America, you can come with your feet on the ground running. All the civil rights barriers are broken down for you. You got economic opportunities at your feet. Sometimes you getting special things that we fought for ADOS is just getting put in place for minorities. All these different, you come in with wealth, okay? But you're coming with visas where you can just come in and work and get high paying jobs and all this kind of stuff. And you don't have to pay the cost of living an American life or growing up in America. So, and I'm not saying, you know, if my life was I was living a different life and I had that opportunity, I would come and take over and take advantage of it too. It is what it is. But the problem is, that's a political thing that should have been fixed. That's a political thing that should have been addressed. Go ahead.
And remember, they got themselves classified as Asians in order that they will be able to take advantage of affirmative action.
When they were Caucasian first, right? When they were white.
They were listed as Caucasians and white up until the 70s. So all of that helps. They don't have that albatross of slavery around their neck, and then they're able to, at the same time, use the minority status to access affirmative action that was really supposed to be for our tribal people, for themselves.
That's right. So you see, and now I was trying to, I don't think I had the information, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know this, if you can find this Forbes list top 50 women in tech 2018. Let me know if there are any ADOS women on that list. Because if we're 12, let's say we're 12, you take out the other immigrants, we say we're 12% of the population, right? How do we not have 12% of the top 50 women? Or how do we have 0%? But a group that may be less than 1%, let's say they're 1%. How do they have 8% of the top 50? Like that doesn't make any kind of sense. That just shows that America has failed in addressing its criminal background, dealing with the oppression of ADOS. So let me go to this, man. I got to read this piece right here. This is coming from it's a book. All right, hold on. Zoom.
Make sure y'all click the like button, family. For those of you who just came in, shout out to everybody that's listening. You know, if you missed it, make sure you go back. I want to say that we framed this discussion first by pointing out this myth that we're Black people number one. And now we see that this Blackness thing has become problematic. It has become problematic. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, and before I do this, I just, this is not going at any particular group. What this is showing you that it's a difference it's a difference in life. It's a difference in the story and the path that you have when you're coming from slavery, Jim Crow, white terrorism, theft of assets and property, being denied opportunity, all the way to the present day, having the government authorize cocaine to flood your neighborhoods and your people being on crack, all this kind of stuff. It's a difference than when you come fresh to a country with a fresh start from an advantaged background. You cannot compare the two. And then when you try to figure out, well, why is it that we have been here for hundreds of years and we have never gotten an ADOS president? We never gotten an ADOS vice president. We barely, how many ADOS state governors have we had? Have we, she just appointed a chief of staff. Her chief of staff is even a Haitian chick. How many ADOS chiefs of staffs, even for the vice president office, have we had? I mean, somebody can run down the numbers. All I know is I can't think of it. I don't remember. Somebody help me out. But let me read this article. It says at the moment, the name of this article is it's from UC Santa Cruz. Okay, the college University of California Santa Cruz. Success of Indians in the U.S. showcases the importance of education. Okay, that's what they say. All right, now let's read it. At a moment when immigration to the United States is being challenged at the highest levels of government, the experience of Indian immigrants in America offers valuable lessons about the mutual benefits of open borders. Indian Americans are the wealthiest and the most highly educated immigrants in the country. But there's nothing special about Indians per se. According to the economics professor Nirvikar Singh, co-author of The Other 1%, Indians in America. That's an interesting title, isn't it?
That is a very interesting title. The other 1%.
Since 1965, the selection process in India has favored the most privileged members of society. The most privileged members of society. Those from the educated upper classes. And U.S. immigration policies further advantaged high-achieving students and skilled workers. There is no secret sauce. There are no peculiarly Indian cultural traits, said Singh. They came very carefully selected. They were not coming from poverty. The simplest policy's prescription may be this: make sure everyone has access to education. Co-authored with Sanjoy Chakravorty, a geographer, and Devesh Kapoor, a political scientist. The Other 1% breaks down the fascinating story. This is not a book promo. I'm just reading the article. Breaks down the fascinating story of how population from a poor developing country with low education became the most educated, highest income group in the world's most advanced nation in a single generation. Understand that. In a single generation. How many generations we've been over here? And how are we not the most educated, the highest? If you go back and look at the stuff our people achieved, despite the hell that we were being put through, despite all that, and we still here, but we at the bottom. That is a crime. But you telling me somebody can come over here and in a single generation become the most educated, the highest income group in the whole world, in the world's most advanced nation? I mean, understand, like, it's a problem. That's why people are pissed off. And we don't try to push her down our throat as us. She does not represent us. She represents.
Let me speak to that real quick, because the guy, this funny guy, the Chris Benjamin Randolph guys in my chat on Facebook, well, in our chat on Facebook, and he's going to bat for Kamala, right?
Okay, come on.
And that article that you were just reading from, it's a powerful article because it reveals something about education. And if Kamala is Obama 2.0, which we all believe that she is and is going to be, I eventually believe she will be the president. I don't believe Biden will finish out his whole first term. Think about what Barack Obama's response was to the question of reparations. Were you still reading from this screen, brother?
Yeah. I was trying to. I wanted to get some data, but go ahead. All
right. Now think about what Barack Obama's response was to the reparations question. It was that, well, we just need to invest in education. This is the go-to line that I've heard over and over and over again. And yet, you got people coming from other countries that become tech giants. They are highly, highly educated. Obama was president for 8 years. Where are we as ADOS on any of those lists? The first Black person to do this is always someone from continental Africa or from the Caribbean islands. Where was the investment that Barack Obama said that we don't need reparations for in the education that propelled us to the front of the class, like these people here, to create the 1%? So this rules, this pivot, as Otis says in the chat, that they always do when it comes to us, it magnifies itself. And I want to talk to the Chris got us in the Facebook chat so that he could understand that these people don't care nothing about us. You talk about these symbolic bills that Kamala Harris brought up that didn't even get a vote. That bill that you put the link to didn't even get a vote, while telling us we should have did better research, while apparently not doing no research into the bill at all. We do research over here, as you can see. So, you know, I wanted to speak to that because that education part was that the anti-reparation is used as a comeback in light of what you were just reading is vital in understanding why we remain at the bottom of wealth positionality in the United States of America.
Yeah, let me come back, bro. I
gotta put the link in the chat. I don't know if he's talking about that article.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in the chat. Let me get back to this.
Man, wait, somebody, I was just thinking about this earlier. It said Obama pissed me off. Brother Chris said Obama pissed me off when he fake drank that Flint water. That was his I'm not doing anything for ADOS. And that was just so funny. Oh, he said the Facebook chat, the link for Facebook. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Josh.
Yeah, we can pull that screen up one more.
Okay, hold on.
Okay. Let me just finish reading this because it has some key numbers. I thought that was very relevant. So it says, again, it says, I'm gonna read that again. That it says, his book breaks down a fascinating story of how a population from a poor developing country with low education became the most educated, high-income group in the world's most advanced nation in a single generation. I might end up picking that book up. Anyway, now numbering more than 3 million people of Indian origin make up 1% of the U.S. population, hence the book's title, and would surge to 2% by 2030 if current trends were to continue. Now, let me just show y'all this real quick. Now, we talked about the bill that she promised this. Now, this was November of that article that Ali pulled up to say she promised she would get that bill passed that took the cap off of H-1B visas for people coming from India. Now, look, this is the number of
so wait a minute. So she's trying to do something specifically for people coming from other countries, correct? Specific. Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that.
When you take the cap off of it, see, it's capped because India and China put together have almost 3 billion people.
Can you expand that, bro?
Yeah. Hold on. All right, is this better?
Yeah, much better.
Okay. See, it's capped because India and China have billions of people, almost 3 billion people when you put it together, right? And or maybe is it over 3 billion? I don't remember. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So if you don't cap it, nobody from these other countries will get in because the queue for people waiting for H-1B visas to come to America to work is astronomical in those countries, to where people are waiting in the queue for a decade or something crazy just to before they get to the front of the line for their visa to come to where they can work in the United States. But just look at how many people are getting H-1B visas. Look at the percentage of people and look at the number of people. So the grand total, this is just as 2018, right? This is just 2018. Look how many Indian people came to work in America on H-1B visas. Wow. 309,986. That's almost 70. That's almost 3/4 of the total of the rest of the world. Then wow. Chinese is 47,172. So I mean, they're almost 6.5 times more than the Chinese. And look at the rest of the world. Nobody is even over more than 1.1%. And that's Canada, which all they got to do is cross. They can drive over here.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to fly.
They got great health care in Canada, so
yeah. And then you look at that and you're like, well, why in the world would you want to take the cap off of that? But then you can think about it. Not only is she Indian, but you got to look at how they're dominating. And so so I just talked about Indians are dominating in tech, and let me break down this statistic right here. It says if current trends would continue, more than 75% have arrived. 75% of those here have arrived since the 1990s.
Ooh, damn.
So it says the flow of Indians to the United States began in 1965 when the U.S. relaxed its immigration policies. Coming disproportionately from the upper caste, those early migrants sought educational and employment opportunities and set in motion a pattern of success that will be replicated across generations. 68% of India-born immigrants living in the U.S. have college degrees. Okay. Indian immigrants are concentrated in industries like information technology. We know that. Their average incomes are generally higher than the average incomes associated with their level of educational attainment, which means, so if you're an Indian in tech, usually your average income is higher than ADOS in tech, is higher than white American in tech, is higher than Chinese, you're the highest. Okay, generally. So it says rates of self-employment and entrepreneurship are higher at both the high and low ends of the income scale, reflecting engagement in both hospitality and retail, as well as medicine and high-tech industry. So basically, they're more likely to open a business. Well, yeah, I mean, generally, if you more likely to have money, you're more likely to open a business. You know, especially another thing, if you're coming from a country with billions of people, it's usually more of a competitive environment to where it cultivates a spirit of entrepreneurship. But let me keep reading. It says though Indians make up 1% of the population, they comprise 8% of the founders of high-tech companies and 1/3 of technology startups in Silicon Valley. I don't want to keep on reading this. This is really interesting. I don't want to keep reading to bore y'all. But look, what the whole point of reading this is to say, like, you got to understand a con. If a person is saying that they're black, they didn't say African American. You know, that's very careful language. Let me stop.
She said African American.
But she says it. She says it, but we don't say it. You know,
definitely.
We don't say African American because we know when you say African American, like Obama, he could kind of get away with that slick stuff because his daddy was actually from Africa. Mm-hmm. So then we go, yeah, technically he is African American. But when we say it, if somebody challenge you on, well, how is Harris African American? Like her people her daddy's from Jamaica, you know, and her mama's from India. There's no African in that. And so you're like, all right, yeah. So you have to say black. So it's slick. It's real slick because we know we use black and African American interchangeably. You know, so when you think about what she's rooted in, and you try to think about,
put that link.
Bro. Yeah, let me. I'll get the link as soon as I finish. But yeah, my thing is like, if it's one thing if you're going to be who you are. And still, like, you can still be an ally and you still can fight. But we know the reason why, and I put a tweet. I wish I could bring it up here. I didn't think about it. But Yvette Carnell was one of her previous shows. I give her props on it. And she said something powerful. I heard her say this last year. And this just one of those things that just stuck with me. And it was emotional triggers are meant for emotional triggers are meant to maximize voter turnout and minimize policy demands. Emotional triggers are meant to maximize voter turnout and minimize policy demands. So we see that when you see Obama and people crying, oh, he's the first black man to be president, and he's Kamala Harris, she's the first black woman, and you see all people like Jamel Hill and all these people on Twitter. So, black girl magic. What it's meant to do is minimize policy demands. It's meant to make it to where they set up a wall and a gate behind being able to even criticize or ask them anything. You see, if they coming for people who got some criticism, they come for us. They come for ADOS, and they feeling like their team is strong, but they don't understand. Our team is super strong. Our team is right and exact. And our team, like, you might be enthusiastic and about this life for a little while, but you ain't gonna be on it like we on it. We live it, we breathe it, we sleep it, we on it every day, we on it all day. And you're not gonna overcome that. We gonna bring these policy demands. We gonna bring them, and we gonna wake up and make more reparationists to come with these policy demands. We not playing with that.
That's right, Brother Ali. Matter of fact, to camel back on what you were just saying. That's how Trump gets elected. When you look at what Obama did in creating a new millionaire class in his 8 years while ADOS's wealth declined. It's so funny because politics at the end of the day is the power in this nation. And you have a two-party system that has a lock on the power in this country. And both parties step on us. One party is just open about it. And so we could say, you know what? All right, we not rocking with them guys. If it was left up to them, we'd all be back in chains. But this party, it seems like they want to do something for us. So they give us a bunch of symbolism, a bunch of emotionalism. And what the Republicans were able to do, and I just thought about this as you were speaking, they were able to use Obama's race as that emotional trigger so that they could regain power. Oh my God, look at what he's doing to the economy. Knowing they were coming up as fat cats, right? Sean Hannity profited because of what Obama did in housing. This dude was making money hand over fist. He was making money hand over fist. So we got to understand how this power game is played in the United States of America so that we could stop being played, so that we could stop getting a Jamel Hill and a Tavis Smiley. Clyburn on a Bloomberg interview when asked, well, what about her record against black people in California? She was a tough prosecutor. You know, you got to be tough on prosecutions when you're prosecuting the prosecuted. It was something he was saying. I'm just paraphrasing, of course. And I'm like, what in the world is this dude talking about here? So I'm just saying this is what this show is about. And we're going to keep.
You know what's so crazy, man? What's so crazy is I was talking to someone on Facebook earlier who was trying to defend the tough prosecution thing and, oh, well, they're locking up black dudes. Well, black dudes got to stop committing crimes, right? And I said, you know something? Black people, particularly black men, make up the majority of the wrongful convictions in this country. This is known information put out by the Equal Justice Initiative. The what's the other group that work on exonerations for people?
Innocence Project.
The Innocence Project. They both say the same thing. Blacks, particularly black men, make up the majority of wrongful convictions. They make up the majority of exonerations in this country, and often subjected to disparate sentencing, much harsher prosecution and disparate sentencing. That ends in that, and so I think falsified police reports. I just saw an article recently where a bunch of cops were involved in like some, this whole big thing about falsified police reports. I know of an incident, a couple of incidents in New Jersey at least, where had the incident not been caught on camera, the police told a completely contrary story about these two brothers that were in this automobile, and they said they attacked them or some kind of nonsense, when the fact of the matter, it was the other way around. But they had made their police report, they falsified it in such a way that these brothers had it gone the way that the cops had set them up, they would have been completely jammed up in the judicial system. Luckily, the cameras caught what really took place. And so this happens so much. You talk about what happened to Sandra Bland and Ahmaud Arbery, so often our people are subjected to abuse and mistreatment. And so I really don't want to hear about tough prosecutors. I don't want to hear about tough prosecutors because we've been dealing with a lot of that. And a lot of times that stuff is trumped up and we're victims of malicious, or I wouldn't necessarily say malicious, but we're victims of prosecution that was unjust.
Yeah.
I just want to say that.
No doubt. I also wanted to say, it's looking, I guess we want to talk about what do we do? Because, like I said, when you're telling somebody no and somebody do it to you anyway, what does that sound like? And then you feel violated.
Right.
All right, so it is what it is. So now let's say Joe Biden wins, and now you got Kamala, and Joe Biden, he may stay. I mean, he's looking decrepit and see now. He's not. COVID is kind of masking some of that because he's able to hide. So we don't know if he's going to stay around and if he's not.
But it looked like when he was reading from the prompter, I was like, they probably told him, read the words from the prompter only, Joe. Don't say nothing else. Go ahead, brother.
Oh, yo, by the way, we was going so hard, man. We knocked the Juneteenth flag down.
It just went. No, my AC is out. They're gonna come fix it. So I've been without AC all day. So I got like this fan just right here. So it's kind of blowing it. And, yeah, I call it the freedom flag. I call it.
There you go. Yeah. But building on what I was just saying about we're gonna keep these policy demands going up. The number one policy demand we always gonna be making is reparations.
Right.
It's gonna everything we talk about. It has. Believe it or not, you may not think it has to do, but all of this has to do with reparations. Because first off, let's say this, right? We know reparations is a congressional focus. We know reparations has to be something that is implemented by Congress. But the commission study bill, that can be done via executive order. And if we've been making reparations this big of an issue, hey, you got to support it. Don't see. I just think it's real problematic when you have somebody that is not going to have any that you're going to give overwhelming support for. You're gonna block us from being critical of, but then that person is not going to give us anything. That person is not. We know that person is very unlikely. So, look. It may be we may have to go for battle with our people for a while, but we're going to keep beating this drum for reparations, and we're going to demand that those in office, I don't care what level they are, as far as on the federal, I don't care if they're a congressman, I don't care if they're elected official with the president, as far as president or vice president, we're going to be demanding that you address this long-standing atrocity. I think it's too many issues with us not seeing a sense of urgency with reparations. Like, we can't afford to get I feel like what we're seeing with Kamala Harris, it's almost like people forgot about Obama. And what we saw with Obama is people went to sleep. You could not, if we just look at HR 40, now I know a lot of that we talked about our advocacy as far as ADOS was the reason that really HR 40 got on steroids as far as signatures, co-sponsors. But if you look at under Obama, reparations kind of just was a dead issue for a while, till the end of his presidency. You didn't see a lot of people pushing that. You didn't see a lot, but I feel like if we are not able to keep the pressure on, and if we get people distracted because they buying into the tokenism of the black woman, and you can't criticize. Look, we can criticize. We criticizing her. We trying to tell y'all she's not worthy of defending like that. We trying to tell y'all your best interests will be thwarted if you don't allow us to keep putting the pressure, and if you don't join the fight and put in the pressure. We got to keep on fighting for reparations and putting the pressure on for reparations. And there's no reason why we should have another enemy in the White House that we give our votes to. See, the difference between Trump and Biden and Harris is we didn't vote for Trump. So we don't really have it. It'd be great if he did reparations. Come on, let's be real. We're talking about a world which COVID has ravaged everybody. Trump is gonna be out of there. Biden and Harris are getting the overwhelming vote from us. We're going to watch. We're going to be the group that votes them at the highest percentage.
Mm-hmm.
At the highest percentage. It's probably going to be even higher than Hillary Clinton, higher than Obama.
Even though Latinos are the future, it's going to be us that's going.
Think about it.
The people that they're going to make the investments in, right? Jim Crow Joe. And day one, Kamala said on day one, I will do this. She listed her 5 things, and DACA was one of them. DACA was one of them. So
Go ahead, Josh. What you were saying?
No, I'm just saying, like, all of y'all that are coming at us for being critical at them, these are not supposed to be saviors and messiahs that have your ticket to the afterlife that you're supposed to be defending. Like if you don't believe in them, you're going to hell or something like that. These are politicians that are asking for your vote. They're influencing policy that is going to improve or harshen your conditions on a macro scale. So, man, could you read that one again? We the public have no input, but have to live with it for the rest of our lives. Only ones that benefit get paid on commission and get paid to hand us a few dollars and manage our resources for years. Yeah. See, man, look, if we had, let's just say, okay, so let's back up and let's just look at maybe an alternative. Look, what if we live in an alternative universe where Diddy and all of these people wrote and said we need to have a reparationist, ADOS reparationist vice president or else. And let's just say the masses of our people didn't fight us. They didn't side with Pan-Africanists. We were on point, and we actually were able to hold Joe Biden and Democrats or whoever to as a consequence saying you will lose the White House, because let's say they can actually track it out and see that if they didn't do it, then they will lose. Maybe he would pick a reparationist as a vice president. We don't have to be a woman. It just need to be a reparationist. And so then we could have it to where that reparationist president, you go ahead of HR 40 and just do your own presidential commission to study reparations, and then you order that commission to when it comes time for Congress. See, I think people underestimate the how much the commander in chief can influence the Congress. If you go back and you look at the crime bill, it wasn't Joe Biden that influenced the CBC to do the crime bill. It was Bill Clinton. We can go and Google that Baltimore Sun article from, I believe it was 1992 or something like that. Go and Google that article. And you read in there that it was several CBC members that was against the crime bill, who Bill Clinton, no, it wasn't 1992, I think it was 94. Bill Clinton leaned on them. He leaned on them because he needed, maybe it was 96. Anyway, he leaned on them because he needed support to do that bill. So he could, no, it was 94. So he could get that legislation passed because he figured it would help him in re-election. So we underestimate how much having somebody that's going to fight for policy for your best interest is having them in the White House. So now, if you understand that you're going to give your vote in an overwhelming fashion to somebody that's going to be fighting for other groups' best interests, that's going to stomp on you at the bottom. What sense does that make? So y'all need to be with us. If you listening, and for all y'all who may be sleeping with somebody who's against that position, or who may be friends of him, you need to be influencing those people. You might have to fight, but you're gonna have to influence these people. Look, we can't make the same mistake we made with Obama, letting him be untouchable. We can't criticize him. No, we need to go at them, and we need to make the demands that you need to address us with reparations. Period. You're gonna have hell. But that's all I wanted to say.
Brother Ali.
Yeah. I mean, excellent breakdown. I think for me, what I get out of everything he's saying is that we need to be able to do what can be considered unapologetically Black politics, which is something that we haven't been able to do since the death of Dr. King. Everybody's been towing the party line. Everybody's been go along to get along. And so I think at this point, you're getting a segment of our a segment of our group that's just waking up to it. I think Obama did wake up in a lot of our people the idea that, hey, melanin is not the answer. We actually need policy, man. We actually need legislation, because it was through legislation and policy that they put us in the trick bag that we wound up in.
That's
so we
right.
need that. We need that. You know.
I wanted to say one more thing. I meant to say. Well, I was trying to text earlier before I could get on, but the text was too long. I think part of what we're seeing with Kamala, and the reason why so many people are being affected by it, is due to like the aspiration nature of a lot of us. A lot of us don't want to face the facts. They don't want to face that the middle Black family, when you take out depreciating assets, is worth $1,700. They don't want to face the fact that we only have 2-3% of the wealth in the country. They don't want to face the fact. Can y'all still hear me?
Oh yeah.
They don't want to face the fact that our wealth is projected to hit zero at the median by 2053. And with COVID and whatever, we don't know if that's been put on roller skates. They want to face all of the facts. They don't want to face the fact that we're a bottom caste, and that it would take 228 years for the average Black family to catch the white family wealth if we stood still. So we would rather continue with the program of the decadent veil has to say, look, all we can do for self. We can lift our own selves by our bootstraps. We don't need handouts. We don't need all this. And we can do it on our own. Black excellence, Black decadence, tux fitted next to the president, all that kind of stuff. And so, no, you're a group that come from slaves. You're a group that come from the institution of slavery. All right. You're a group that come from, your great grandmother was giving their babies to drink out of her titty milk. They were taking her grandkids and using them as alligator bait, that kind of stuff. And you get no justice. You go to war, you come back from war, and you are treated like trash in the country that you put your life on the line for. All of these injustices, you know what I'm saying? You come from that. You don't get to just skip over and pretend like that is not a reality. You don't get to skip over the work that you have to do to fight to change that. And them giving you Kamala Harris is like a soothing escapism to say, oh yes, we got it. No, we didn't really. Honestly, we ain't do the work we deserve. We needed to do to deserve to get an ADOS vice president or president. And so them giving it to us, it just allows us to keep on with that fantasy narrative. No, we got to do the work. We got to do the work. And we can't allow them to give us that to pacify us and trick us. Man, it's a problem.
Definitely.
Yes, brothers, somebody put up a comment that it's a crime, it's basically a crime being perpetuated. I agree with that 100%. And I think too, it's like something I said earlier on Facebook, even just closing out in my comments and how all of this stuff plays together. Even the creation of the colorized racial classification system by European Christian extremists was a crime perpetrated against humanity. And we see the effects of that all through everything that we're talking about. Man. It's a trickle-down effect. And your racial classifications is going to play its role in the politics. We see it manifesting itself in the type of politics that we're getting. So I mean, basically, man, that's all I really wanted to say on it, brother Josh. You your information powerful as usual, brother Naheem, powerful as usual.
Oh yeah, so we gonna wrap it up, family. We're closing in on 2.5 hours. Brother Avery Fennell said, so what's the move? Come on now. He also said, we really can't get in a complaining mindset. What are some solutions on revitalization of Black communities? We need to be talking Blacklining. Brother, we've done several shows, brother, and
You need to go through the archives, man. There's a
Yeah,
lot.
brother. We've talked about what needs to be done. We're gonna continue to talk about those things. We've done several shows where we specifically laid out what needs to be done insofar as being advocates for reparations, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I think that a lot of what maybe your concerns have already been addressed, because we're not going to sit around and just not do nothing, brother. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I'm trying to pull up this article real quick. Okay, let me read this real quick before we get off. Shout out to the OG Otis for sending this and sharing this. It says internal documents circulated to DNC delegates hints at why Biden picked Harris. Joe Biden chose Kamala Harris as his running mate because she's popular with suburban women and has shown she can take on Donald Trump and Mike Pence, among other things, according to internal Biden campaign talking points obtained by HuffPost. The documents were distributed to delegates this week ahead of the Democratic National Convention, which is set to begin on Monday. They outline how to promote Harris, how to describe her relationship with Biden, and a hint at why he chose her as his running mate. So I want to read that opening line again. Joe Biden chose Kamala Harris as his running mate because she's popular with suburban women. So basically, he brought on a Oprah. Oprah is popular with suburban women as well. So, I've been following this thing. I've been tracking all of those different stats, the VP stats where based on popularity, who knows her, who's ever heard of her. And Kamala Harris by far blew everybody else out of the water. So, it is what it is, family.
Suburban women is code for white women.
Basically, suburban women is code for white women. So we know what it is. We will no longer do symbolism politics. I don't know what we're going to do this upcoming Tuesday, but it's something that the brothers and I, particularly where Elle and myself have spoken about, and dealing with addressing our brothers and sisters in the gangs across the United States of America. That's our votes, family. Whether you want to hear that conversation or not, those are the votes that we need to get us past the 12.5% of a locked-in electorate that we're already at, that ain't moving. We need to build up at least a new 15 to 20. I'm always thinking big, even 50% on top of that 12.5% electorate, because we need to knock them out the box. So we might do that this upcoming Tuesday. I'm not sure about that yet, but we need to speak to our people. They need to know that, there's brothers and sisters out there that's fighting for them. We know that street life is street life, and we just can't ask anybody to change overnight. It is what it is. Most of us grew up in that street life. I know I could talk all about it for days and days and days. And we need to talk to them people, our people, because that is where our votes are, period. And so I want to close out with the motto of the show. But first, I want to thank everybody for listening in. Shout out to my brother Josh. Shout out to my brother Ali. We had a powerful discussion tonight. We framed Blackness in the context of what Blackness really means in American society as a socio-political construct, as this fraudulent pseudo term in and of itself, which is why it is so problematic now. Then we got into Kamala Harris's background and with stuff I didn't even get a chance to pull up, like the racism in India, where she comes from. Like, I didn't even get a chance to get into that. The conversation was flowing, so I didn't really need to get into that. And we wanted to frame that conversation around Blackness so that people could understand why Kamala being called Black in the United States of America, as if she comes through the lineage of ADOS, of America's descendants of slavery, makes her legitimate. We had to touch on that tonight because we feel that it was important to do so. And I believe that we covered that. I want to say we covered it good, right? So thank you all for listening. And again, the show's motto, don't just fight the power, become the power. And then you will have the power to make a change. With that, I say peace.